Hey everybody, welcome back to the book of Revelation. I am recording this to play on Sunday the 22nd because I need to run down to RDC Church and take part in their service this morning. So glad you're here. We've got a lot to cover in this chapter 9 of Revelation.
So let's dive into the fifth trumpet in Revelation 9, verse 1 to 12. Picture this: an angel blows a trumpet, and a star falls from the sky. This star has a key to the bottomless pit. When it opens the pit, smoke pours out, and with it come these crazy locusts. These aren't your regular locusts. They look like horses ready for battle, with crowns on their heads, human faces, lions' teeth, and wings that sound like chariots. They even have tails like scorpions. Their mission? To torment people who don't have God's seal on their foreheads. For 5 months, they sting like scorpions. People will want to die from the pain, but won't be able to. Their leader is called Abaddon in Hebrew, or Apollyon in Greek, which means destroyer. It's pretty wild, right? This is just one of the intense visions in Revelation. Stay tuned for more.
All right, just hang on. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth. Now, is this similar to what we saw last week with the possible asteroid hitting the earth and a star hitting the earth? Are these kind of one and the same? But it says, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. The star is referred to as a him. This fifth trumpet calls forth a star to fall to earth. This may again be a literal star or meteorite, but Enoch does record, the book of Enoch records some stars or heavenly bodies as being living. But it could be a heavenly messenger given a key to the bottomless pit on earth. And he opened the bottomless pit. And there arose a smoke out of the pit as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power as the scorpions of the earth have power. Now we see the word locust, but these are not the normal little insects we know. This is the first of the judgments that doesn't have a possible physical explanation, something from nature. Earthquakes and floods and fire and hail and asteroids, something that we could understand, like the asteroid theory. The Hebrew word for locust is arbe in this verse. The root for arbe means to know, to weave, to intertwine, to mingle, to lie in wait, to watch and ambush, and indicates an undergirding of craftiness and cunning. So these locusts they're actually demonic entities who are possibly the offspring of the Nephilim. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men who have not the seal of Elohim in their forehead. Now, maybe this reminds you, last week we talked about, well, it was either last week or the week before last, it was from the first trumpet judgment. We're into the fifth trumpet. But at the first trumpet judgment, this was last week, all the grass was burned up. But so maybe some time has elapsed to allow grass to grow back, as these locusts were told not to harm the grass, or 2/3 of the trees that were left from the first trumpet. The first trumpet destroyed 1/3 of the trees. So either some time has elapsed for grass to grow, but maybe not for all of these trees to grow. But then the other interesting thing here in green, but only those men which have not the seal of Elohim in their foreheads, they are not to harm them. Well, the 144,000 are the only ones spoken of as having the seal of Elohim in their foreheads. But surely there are other righteous saints on the earth at this time, including converts of the 144,000 that will be protected by Yah and not be hurt. Now, some may believe that that there'd be some kind of rapture prior to this, but there's no indication of that. Um, I don't know that this passage here guarantees uh, that everyone who doesn't have the seal on their forehead will be stung. It just says don't sting any or hurt any of those who do have this seal on their foreheads. Okay, here's a little 10-minute video by a couple teachers that I want to share with you. Julie found this, and it's pretty good.
Pictures of demonic creatures from the bottomless pit from Revelation 9 are found in ancient Babel. What does this mean? At the fifth trumpet, the bottomless pit or the abyss is opened up and demonic creatures fly out of the pit. This is truly one of the most horrific descriptions in the book of Revelation. Creatures with scorpion tails that can sting the unrepentant and cause them so much pain they desire death but can't even find it. Wow. That's why it's called the first woe. Now, modern Bible scholars are stunned by this description, and in typical modern interpretation style, they ask what these things are, not believing they can be exactly what they're described to be. Instead, they look for something in our modern world that these could be. Some have guessed helicopters, some drones, but guys, these aren't helicopters, as you will soon see. But what if you found out the artists in ancient Sumer, or what the Bible calls Babel, saw these same exact creatures over 3,000 years ago and recorded what they saw on Sumerian artworks? Dr. Doug Hamp and I will show you this art today and discuss what it means and what the Bible says is happening at the fifth and sixth trumpet. You will never be able to read this section of Scripture again the same way after you see these things the Sumerians saw.
Yeah. So as you summarized in Corrupting Image Volume 2, I talk a lot about Nimrod, and I show in the ancient world a cylinder seal from about 2300 BC, and there you see Inanna, who is the woman that rides the beast, right? She's riding a beast, right? And that's what's so amazing is you see Mystery Babylon on the back of this beast.
Riding a beast who is very similar to these creatures. A woman riding the beast, just like Mystery Babylon is described. So how did the ancient Sumerians know about this beast and know about the woman riding the beast?
And the beast is an Anzu bird. It's a hybridized creature. It's a lion, an eagle, some kind of a mix between them. And as that creature goes on in history, it has different forms that it takes. And by the time we get to around 1200 BC, it has become stylized as more of a centaur, which is really interesting. A centaur with two heads, eagle's wings, a scorpion's tail, a serpent head phallus, in fact. And that is exactly what we see in Revelation chapter 9, right? And this absolutely blew my mind. Later, what we found on this thing called a Kuduru stone from about 1200 BC, where it has more of a mantic, or has more of a centaur shape, right? So it has, again, that basic form of a horse, but it has eagle talons. It has a man's head and a lion's head, which is very interesting.
And a scorpion tail, which is very important.
Yep, and the scorpion tail and the serpent head phallus. All right. And that's very significant because I was looking at Revelation chapter 9, and I'm like, what happens if I were to take the fifth trumpet and the sixth trumpet and superimpose them over one another? And I got the exact picture of what we were talking about, of that creature that was on the Kuduru stone. All right.
Okay, Doug, why don't you tell us what we're looking at there?
All right, so this is the Kuduru stone from 1200 BC. Now, it's a little bit hard to see because you can't quite see all of it just based on the glare and such. But if you take a look there, you can see this is a centaur. It's got the shape of a horse, but obviously it has eagle's wings. It has a scorpion's tail. It has a serpent head phallus. And if you look at the heads, you can see that there's actually one head facing forward. That's the man's head. And the head that's facing backwards, that's the lion head.
Mhm.
Right. And what I found in Revelation chapter 9, just by superimposing the fifth trumpet and the sixth trumpet, is this very creature. I mean, 100% on the money, right? It just blew my mind. And this is Nergal. Nergal is the god of the underworld. He has a lot of different names in the ancient world. Okay, so Nergal is one of those. But basically, any iteration of the underworld was this guy. So I mean, it says that these are locusts, but then they don't look like locusts, right? The shape of the locust was horses, right? They're running into battle, so these look like horses, and they have a man's head. But then in the sixth trumpet, they have the head of a lion. You're like, wait, what's going on here, right? So if you superimpose those, and that's what blew my mind, is that by superimposing these, then they came out to be a perfect match, right? And then the power is in their mouth and in their tails, and in their tails are like serpents having heads. With them, they do harm. Now, I was kind of curious. I'm like, wait, a tail? I don't really see a serpent's tail. But it just so turns out that a phallus in Latin is actually referred to as a tail, right? And so that's the same in Greek, that sometimes a phallus can be a tail. Okay, so here you have a serpent head phallus that is on this creature. I mean, it's 100% on the money, right? And that's just what blew my mind. And
I want to bring
200 million.
up one other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, 200 million. If we look at this, one last item that we did not discuss is that he's an archer.
Mhm.
He has a bow in front of him, looks just like the constellation of Sagittarius to me. And it's interesting that a bow is a prominent symbol
Yes.
in the seals also, at the rider of the white horse. So
Let me bring up another picture. I've got it all set to go here because this gives a different perspective. So I'm going to make that a little bigger. So are you able to see that one? Yeah.
oh yeah, we can
Right.
see that. Great.
So this is an even older rendition of what I just showed you. This is from about, I think, 3000 BC. So this is from Uruk. So here you can see it in even more detail. You can really see on the hind legs there, it's got the eagle talons, right? And the obviously the front legs are more horse's hooves, right? And you can see that the head there, it's a little bit, obviously this is not full detail, but you can clearly see the head with the crown, right? And then there's that little thing, that little ball tucked into the side there. That is the lion's head. Okay, so that's the lion's head. And then, we, of course, as you pointed out, we have the archer. Well, what do we see in the first seal? You have this one who's coming out as an archer, right? And I would suggest that that is talking about the beast. All right. Now, I'm not saying that necessarily that he's going to come out shooting like this, that we'll see this guy looking like this necessarily. But I think when the abyss is opened up, that these are the creatures that are in that same image, and they're going to come out in that way. So, part of the, I guess, the little bit of wiggle room here is that we know that Satan can appear as a glorious angel, right, as an angel of light, and so he's able to do shape-shifting
during the
So,
tribulation.
I don't
Now,
think
this
that when the
artwork
Antichrist
was
shows up, he's going to
1,000
look
or
like
more
that
years
on day
older
one, but
than
that
the
is
vision John
ultimately
saw.
his true form.
This Kuduru stone that Dr. Hamp showed us was buried under centuries of dirt and rubble. At the time, God chose to show this vision to John, so John didn't likely know about the art we just saw. Sumerians and John, however, saw the same creatures.
So, how did the ancient people know about this creature? Right? This really begs the question. How did they know about this creature? Because what we just saw in Revelation 9 is a perfect representation of this creature right here. Now, how did John know it? Well, the Holy Spirit revealed it to him, right? He saw this in visions from God, from the one most high God. So that's how he got his data. But how did the other people that weren't talking to the one true God? How did they get their data?
That is an excellent question.
I would suggest that they, maybe they were taking drugs, they were doing some kind of a seance or something so that they could connect with that underworld and they could see what was down there, right? So we're kind of getting it from two different vantage points, right? One from the dark side, they're saying, hey, this is who we are. And then God is like saying, yes, that's who they are, okay? And that's what you should be expecting. And what's crazy is the first century Jewish apocalyptists were expecting the gates of Hades to fling wide open and for hordes of these creatures to come flying out, right? So they never understood the gates of Hades as a defensive measure to keep the church from barging in. Like, that was never the thought. It was more of the underworld is going to, open its gates and come out on the attack. And that's where I think that Jesus put the kibosh on that when he said the gates of Hades will not prevail. All right. Now, we know that eventually the gates of Hades will prevail, right? And they're going to open up, as we read in Revelation chapter 9, and these creatures are going to come out. And we read in both Revelation and in the book of Daniel that the saints will be given into the hands of the beast for a time, times, and half a time, or 1,260 days, right? Now, they're not going to completely win, right? Because Jesus does come back. But it says once the power of the saints is gone, then a judgment was made in favor of the saints. Okay. So it's going to be darn close. Let's put it that way, right? It's going to be very close. And, these creatures plus the Nephilim that, people that would be taking the mark of the beast it's going to be a really bad time on planet Earth. Let's just say that. Yeah.
It's a great video. And to them it was given that they should not kill them. But speaking of those that do not have the mark of Yahweh upon them, they were not to kill them, but that they should torment them 5 months, as their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he strikes a man. So these locusts, we'll keep calling them locusts, physically tortured the unrighteous of the earth over a period of 5 months. However, this does not say that every person stung would be in pain for 5 months. We don't know how long the effects would last. But maybe it did take about 5 months to recover, because in those days shall men seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. I know there have been people who were in such pain they wanted to die. That's what this will be like. And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses. It's like what that video was talking about. Like unto horses prepared unto battle. And on their heads were, as it were, crowns like gold. And their faces were as the faces of men. And they had hair as the hair of women, long hair. And their teeth were as the teeth of lions. And they had breastplates, as it were, breastplates of iron. And the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. Now, John, the Revelator, was a student of the book of Enoch, and he was very familiar with these creatures. The Nephilim will return during the time that Revelation is playing out on this earth. These are not real locusts, but demonic entities released by Yahweh as a judgment on those who oppose him. John says they have a king over them, but according to Proverbs 30:27, we read, the locust has no king, yet they all go forth by ranks. Those who take the mark of the beast, thinking they will escape persecution, will in the end be tormented and killed by the evil ones they thought would later protect them from harm. What a tragic miscalculation. Matthew 24 says, but as in the days of Noah, so likewise shall the coming of the Son of Man. Now this is interesting here. I've never heard this before. For as in the days before the flood, they ate and drank married and gave in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark. And we've always read this just to mean that people ate and drank and married, like as if to say life was kind of normal. And they knew nothing until the flood came and took them all away. So also shall the coming of the Son of Man be. It's interesting here, someone has documented here that the word they is a mischaracterization of the two words Baal Nashim. Baal means devils or idols, Baal, devils or idols, and Nashim means women. So what Yahusha was saying was that one of the signs of his coming will be fallen angels having relations with women like they did in the days of old in the return of the Nephilim. They ate and drank. They married. Fallen angels married and gave in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark. So it shall be with the coming of the Son of Man. That's very interesting to contemplate that these creatures might be a product of the Nephilim returning. The description we're given here matches that of an ancient mythical beast. In Persian mythology, this creature was known as the manticore. The creatures were known as consumers of men, and they will be allowed to consume a third of mankind. As I was just perusing some images for this, I just happened to see this, and it's not a very good picture, but it caught my eye because it said manticore in Revelation 9. And whoever put this together said there was an 85% match of the creature of the called a locust in Revelation 9 with the mythological entity called a manticore. So just throwing that out there, it looks pretty interesting. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. So was it just a duration of 5 months that they could hurt people, or were men hurt for 5 months? And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit. See, the Proverbs said that locusts have no king. So these are not just locusts. Is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Ivrit, that's Hebrew, in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, or Abaddon, as we'd say. But in the Yavani, that's a Greek tongue, his name was Apollyon. So Abaddon, Hebrew for destruction. Apollyon is Greek for destroyer. Abaddon, or Abaddon, has fallen from heaven and has been given the key to the shaft of the abyss. In Hebrew, this star is called Kokav Nephal. Interesting. Nephal is the Hebrew word for to fall or fallen. Kokav is the star. The adjective always comes after the noun. So it's the star fallen. We would say fallen star, which is the Nephilim. It can also imply a devil, Nephal, one of the original fallen watchers, angels, which was the fallen angels, the fallen watchers. About 60 years prior to the writing of Revelation, Messiah died on the tree and went down to the abyss with the key. Until that time, Abaddon held the key. Abaddon is known as the angel of death, and he had the power to lock men up after they die because of their sin. As soon as Yahusha died without sin, he won back the authority to own that key. He proclaimed liberty to the captives, saying Abaddon no longer has power over them. Here is 1 Peter 3:18. Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, so that he might bring you to God. He preached to the spirits in prison, who disobeyed long ago when God waited patiently in the days of Noah while the ark was being built. In the ark, a few people, only 8 souls, were saved through water. That's from 1 Peter. Remember what Yahusha said back in the first chapter of Revelation? First chapter. When I saw him, I fell at his feet like a dead man, but he placed his right hand on me, saying, Do not be afraid. I am the first and the last, and the one who lives. I was dead, but look, I am alive forever and ever. Moreover, I hold the keys of death and Sheol. Abaddon did have those keys, but thanks to Yeshua, he now has the keys over death and Sheol. Now, continuing on, verse 12, it says, One woe is past, and behold, there come 2 more woes hereafter. Remember last week, Revelation 8, verse 3 said, And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the shofar of the 3 angels which are yet to sound. The Hebrew word for woe also means lamentation. Up to this point, nature is being used to reflect our Creator's anger against the sin of the world. At this point, Satan and his hordes are released, and they are corrupting the human genome and deceiving the rest of mankind. So we've had 1 woe is past, but there are 2 more to come. And the 6th angel, we have trumpets 6 and 7. The 6th angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar, which is before Elohim, saying to the 6th angel, which had the shofar, Loose the 4 angels which are bound in the great river Perath, which scholars say that it's the Euphrates River. But these are 4 fallen angels that have been bound for this specific purpose. Now, about these 4 angels, these 4 fallen angels, John is made to understand that God has bound these angels for a specific time in history until he's ready to release them. In the Bible, the angels who serve God are never bound, only fallen angels or demons who followed Lucifer in his rebellion against God. While God has allowed many of these demons the freedom to be active in our world, he has restrained others. To the best of our understanding, these 4 angels are powerful demons that God has kept bound throughout history, just as he had bound the demonic spirits in the bottomless pit. Since it is time for God to use them for his purposes, he releases them to attack those who oppose him. Again, we see the irony. The people the demons attack are the people who unwittingly serve them. John informs us that these powerful demonic spirits are bound at the Euphrates River. Why the Euphrates? There are several reasons. In the ancient world, the Euphrates River was the natural boundary separating east from the west. When the invading armies from the east attacked the western nations, they had to cross the Euphrates River. The Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians, and Medes all came from the east. The Euphrates River was also the eastern boundary of the Roman Empire. The powerful Parthian army was on the other side, ready to attack Rome. There was also a spiritual connection to the Euphrates River, as it was the eastern boundary of the land God promised to Abraham and his descendants through Isaac and Jacob. In Bible times, God's people considered the nations to the east of the Euphrates to be pagans who worshiped demons. For example, Babylon was where Nimrod attempted to establish the first organized religion against God. The Babylonian religion was spread to future empires, including Rome. It became the mother religion of all religions that were contrary to the worship of the one true God. So the Euphrates was both a natural and spiritual barrier separating God's people from those opposed to God. Verse 15, and the 4 angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year for to slay the third part of men. Now, why did it take 13 months and 25 hours for these four fallen angels to prepare? I don't know the answer to that question. But this is the first judgment that is intended to kill 1/3 of humanity. It says men, but does that mean women and children as well, or just men? I don't know. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000. And I heard the number of them. Now, the NIV says twice 10,000 times 10,000. Well, both ways of saying it is 200 million. That's a big army. The largest army in the world currently is that of China, with approximately 2,185,000 active military personnel. And I Googled the question. The largest army ever in history is the Soviet Red Army during World War II, which peaked at over 11 million troops between 1941 and 45. But this army is 200 million. Wow. And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire and jacinth, and it's an emerald, and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. This is all from these four fallen angels that were loosed. By these three was the third part of men killed, by the fire and by the smoke and by the brimstone which issued out of their mouths. Wow. This is very hard for us to imagine in a very literal sense. Fire, smoke, and brimstone killing a third of humanity on earth. But the part we can understand is that almost 3 billion people will die over a very short period of time. These are two separate wars. Now, in the first war, which was back in Revelation 6, at the second seal, that's where 1/4 of the population is destroyed through sword, famine, plagues, and wild beasts. These are wars and things of nature. Here at the sixth trumpet, 1/3 of the world is destroyed by fire, smoke, and or sulfur or brimstone. The entire book of Joel focuses on the sixth trumpet war. This is not the war that brings the final destruction of Yah's enemies, but it will be catastrophic, needless to say. For their power is in their mouth and in their tails, for their tails were like unto serpents, and had heads, and with them they do hurt. And the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues, yet repented not of the works of their hands, that they should not worship devils and idols of gold and silver, and brass and stone and wood, which neither can see nor hear nor walk. Neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their fornication, nor of their thefts. The amazing part is the stubbornness of men's hearts, that they will not turn to Yahweh or repent, even in the midst of this kind of horrific judgment. Now, any reasonable person would think that people who survived this horror would turn to God, but unfortunately, they do not. There is nothing rational or logical about sin. It is willful rebellion against God. John says that they do not repent of their worship of demons and idols, their murders, their sorceries, their sexual immorality, or their thefts. Wow, hard to believe. Like Pharaoh, they hardened their hearts against God. This is the end of today's portion. This recording is only almost 35 minutes long. So I'm going to turn the class back over to Julie for any questions and to end in prayer. Thank you again, and I will see you next week. Some of you I'll see later today because the Legacy Choir is singing at Mount Ebal Baptist Church. We're leaving from Lexington Baptist at 5 o'clock. Bless you. Have a great one.